What's up and welcome back to Cryptographics. Today, I'm going to be sharing with you guys my ultimate guide to HEDRON, where I'm going to start at the very beginning and slowly break down HEDRON so you can understand it deeper and deeper and deeper. There are a couple prerequisites that we're going to talk about in this video, but it's going to be a presentation with text so that you can follow along, so you can understand it, and pause when you need to reread something or rewind and re-listen while rereading it, however you want to do it. So let's get right into it. So one thing too that I want to say, because you obviously can't see me now, I'm going to keep myself out of the picture here just so that way any of the text that is going to come up will not be in the way. I don't want to be doing that. So let's begin. The prerequisites, like I was talking about here. To fully comprehend what HEDRON is in this presentation, please watch my guide to hex. I recently posted it about a week ago. I'll have it somewhere up on the screen here as a link to that video. If you don't fully understand hex, you're going to have a hard time wrapping your head around HEDRON. Best to try and understand it as best as you can as soon as possible. You will need to understand the basic functionality and mechanics within hex, and including what the Tshare is and how it works over time. So the big question is, what exactly is HEDRON? HEDRON is a token that only comes into existence from staked hex and is also free to those who stake hex. When users stake their hex, they can mint 1,000 HEDRON per day per Tshare for the life of the stake. However, the actual measurement on HEDRON.pro is in B shares, which is 1/1000th of a Tshare. Think trillion share and billion share here, not T and B, if that helps you make more sense of it. Which means users can mint 1 HEDRON per B share per day for the life of the stake. So that means HEDRON is inflationary and its supply will go up. So HEDRON supply works in opposition to hex and is tied to the hex Tshare instead. HEDRON is the most inflationary it will ever be in its beginning years, with currently 109 trillion tokens in existence, and obviously that's growing. When the Tshare rate goes up, so does the difficulty of acquiring HEDRON. Now that's obviously because even if the price of hex doesn't go up and it stays the same, it costs more hex to acquire a Tshare. That means the price of a Tshare goes up. That means it costs technically more to be able to mint the same amount of HEDRON over time. So over time, though, less and less HEDRON will be minted into existence, causing the supply inflation to plateau just because of how difficult it will get because of the Tshare rate going up alone. And then if you add in the hex price potential increase that we could see in the future, it just makes things exponentially difficult. So like I was saying here, if the Tshare rate and the price of hex increase, as you can see in this diagram, the difficulty of minting HEDRON goes up exponentially. Now, let's look at the HEDRON per Tshare and how that works. Though the cost of acquiring a single Tshare in hex, or in terms of hex, will always go up, the amount of HEDRON per Tshare will always stay the same. Though different lengths of stake will allow for different amounts of mintable HEDRON, up to 5,555,000 maximum just for a single Tshare, a single Tshare for a given length of time will always output the same amount of HEDRON, no matter the Tshare rate. So that means a 5555 day Tshare is always going to equal 5,555,000 HEDRON. So no matter what the Tshare rate is, a max length stake with 1 Tshare will only ever mint 5,555,000 and will not increase or decrease over time. If both the Tshare rate and the price of hex increase, the difficulty of minting HEDRON goes up exponentially, which will lead to a slowing in the amount of HEDRON coming into supply per year. Now, another way we can look at HEDRON is, now that we understand supply, let's look at how HEDRON functions as like a utility. So HEDRON can act as a form of decentralized credit when a hex stake is created through the HEDRON protocol in the form of what's called an HSI, which is just a hex staking instance. When users stake hex through the HEDRON protocol or HEDRON.pro, they have the option, or I should say app.icosa.pro, which there will be a link in the description to be able to access both of those. They have the option to advance all possible HEDRON that they could mint by the end of the stake. So let's say you have a Tshare stake we were just talking about, a max length Tshare stake for 5,555 days, and you had 1 Tshare, you'd get 5.555 million HEDRON out of that. But if a user decides to advance the HEDRON, they're using their hex stake as collateral and must make repayments with interest, currently around the 1.6% mark, every 30 days. So if after 90 days a repayment has not been made, the hex stake will go up for auction. This auctioned hex stake can be bid on with HEDRON tokens, and we'll talk a little bit more about that soon. So all I'm saying here is basically, if you decide to go this route, you can basically advance mint instead of waiting to the end of your stake to mint all of your HEDRON. You can do that up front. You can mint it up front, but if you don't pay these repayments every 30 days or up to 90, basically on day 90, you will lose your stake and you'll have to bid on it if you want to get it back, and someone else could potentially take it from you, and someone probably will, unless you have a lot of HEDRON that you're willing to burn. But let's continue. So the big question that everyone's been asking is, what gives HEDRON value? Well, firstly, if a hex stake instance is advanced against and goes without payment for 90 days, the HSI goes up for auction and can only be purchased using HEDRON tokens. Therefore, HEDRON tokens give the power to possibly get hex for less than the value of the hex stake plus future value of that stake. Because that's a big thing to consider when you're bidding on an auction is, are you bidding based on the base value of the stake or the base value plus interest and possibly even the HEDRON that you get out of that stake? Secondarily, users can stake their free or bought HEDRON tokens to earn yield in the form of ICOSA, which is another token that is basically built in conjunction with HEDRON and Hex, but we're going to talk about that soon. Not quite yet. We'll do that in another stream, or another video, I should say, that's going to be coming very soon as well. So HEDRON's value proposition of owning the token comes down to the ability to get hex stakes at a discount as well as earn yield through staking. So let's look at a flowchart to just understand how HEDRON can be used here. So of course, you start in Ethereum, you buy hex. We're going to go the free route here. So you buy hex, you stake your hex spits out hex, but before the end of the stake, you mint your HEDRON. Now, with that HEDRON, you can either go and stake that to earn yield, or you can take that HEDRON and you could use that HEDRON to bid on HSIs that have been placed up for auction. And then once you've done that, then we go to our second flowchart, which we'll get to in a little bit. Now let's talk about HEDRON staking, because we just touched on that briefly. Unlike Hex, HEDRON stakes have no limit on how long you can stake, but instead there are minimum days you must serve before you can end the stake if you choose. So it's very different. Hex, you can choose a maximum at any length. You can choose 3 days, 360 days, 3,060 days, like whatever you want to do, up to 5,555. But there are 5 tiers of minimum stake lengths to HEDRON. So there's 30, 90, 180, 270, and 360 days based on the share of the supply your HEDRON has, or your HEDRON stake is. Now, another unique attribute to the HEDRON staking is the ability to add to your stake at any point. The only drawback is that your minimum days you must serve is reset. So what that means is you can basically, on day 2 of your HEDRON stake, you can go and add a little bit more HEDRON if you want. But what that means is, let's say you're in the 90-day category, then if you were originally serving 90 days, on day 2, when you go ahead and restake or add to your stake, you're resetting the minimum days to start 90 days from when you add that HEDRON. So you have to do another 90 days, no matter if you serve 2 days or 89 days before adding. Now, during the stake, users will not receive HEDRON, but instead they will receive yield in the form of another token called ICOSA. So let's quickly talk about these stake lengths. So the first one's a whale size stake, which is greater than 1% of the entire HEDRON supply, which means the minimum stake length is 360 days. But that means if you're in this tier, you're going to get a 20% bonus on whatever the yield is that you have when your stake ends, which means either when the 360 days is up or whenever you end your stake afterwards. So a shark size stake is 0.1% of the HEDRON supply, 270 days, and 15% bonus on yield. And then as you see, dolphin is 0.01% with 180 days and 10% bonus on the yield. A squid size stake is 0.001% of the HEDRON supply, 90 days, and 5% bonus on yield. Everything under this threshold here of 0.001% of the HEDRON supply puts you in this 30-day category, which has no bonuses on yield. So there are staking penalties for HEDRON though. And I want to make this very clear because they're not like Hex. It's very different. So if a user ends a stake early, they will get back the percentage of their principal and yield equivalent to the percentage of the stake served. So simply put, that means if a user ends a stake at the 50% mark, they will get 50% of the yield they earned, as well as 50% of the principal. If you're 75%, just replace the numbers here with 75. If you're 1%, you get 1% in each, like moved here. So you get 1% of the rewards, 1% of your principal. That's it. So the penalties are very different than Hex, and you need to understand these before you end a stake. Because if you're thinking, oh, I'm 50% of the way through, I can end it and I get my principal back. Nope. Got to make sure you know what you're doing here. This is not Hex. Now, let's talk about tokenized stakes, because this is one of the very, very unique attributes to HEDRON and what brings a lot of value to the table and allows some serious flexibility with Hex and Hex stakes that previously weren't there. So unique to the HEDRON protocol is the Hex staking instance, like we previously mentioned, where an HSI can be tokenized and then act in the same way as an NFT. Now, if you're not super familiar with NFTs, but you kind of know what they are, you think they're just like JPEGs on the internet that move around, well, you're pretty much there. But think about it, like you can send and receive it. You can sell it on OpenSea, which is basically a marketplace for a lot of these, this digital blockchain art, and people can buy them. So this means, like I was just saying, that users can actually sell their Hex stakes on an NFT marketplace, which is super unique. They can actually send and receive Hex stakes to and from their wallet as well. Now, once a tokenized HSI has been received by another user, they can detokenize the stake in order to mint the HEDRON or end the stake. Now, in order to actually tokenize a stake, there's one extra button that you have to press, and if you're on app.icosa.pro, it should be fairly easy to see. You can go to the actions menu and actually just click on the little actions, and it will bring up tokenize, and you can follow through with that from there. Now, tokenizing a stake also gives you the option to both advance your HEDRON, like we previously mentioned, as well as trade in your HSI to the Icosa staking platform smart contract in exchange for Icosa, which is also called the HSI buyback, which we're not going to get into today. We're going to save the Icosa stuff for another stream. I want to leave this strictly to HEDRON, so there's not too many questions in the comments regarding both HEDRON and Icosa. I want to stick to one path here. So now that we've covered pretty much all the bases, let's go through the entire pathway that you can basically take using the HSI, HEDRON, and its utility. So starting up here, of course, you've created your Hex stake instance through hedron.pro or through app.icosa.pro. Now, the first thing you can do on this chart, we're going to start on the right here. Option number one is to borrow against the HSI. So you borrow against it, you get all the HEDRON that you could have waited to mint, and you can do whatever you want with it. Of course, you can go and there's a million, anything you could possibly think of. Treat yourself, save it for a rainy day, just wait and make repayments on whatever you want to do. You can just do that. So you make repayments. If you don't make repayments on it, though, after 90 days, it goes up for auction. Now, if it goes up for auction, of course, the HEDRON that you got from your Hex stake, you could use to bid on this auction if this wasn't your stake. I mean, you could do this as well. Bit of a weird maneuver, but you could totally do it. So you've got your HSI, someone else has gone to liquidations, you take your HEDRON that you've minted, and you can then bid on these HSIs. Now, there's no guarantee you're going to get it, but you can essentially win or bid on a Hex stake and hopefully get a deal on it to accumulate more Hex and also get a little more HEDRON as well. So if you win, you start back up here. Now, let's say we've won this bid, we got an HSI again, and we want to try a new path. So, well, we know we can stake HEDRON to earn Icosa, but we can also do this tokenizing the HSI option, which is cool because like I was saying previously, you can sell the HSI, which you could basically sell your Hex stake for ETH, USDC, whatever you want to list it for on an NFT marketplace, which is great because it doesn't actually hurt the price of Hex if you sell the HSI. So it prevents the price of Hex from coming down if in the event that you do need to get out of a Hex stake. You can also, of course, send that to a wallet, another wallet of yours to transfer, or you can send it to somebody else as a gift or whatever. Sky's the limit here. Also, you can use this tokenized HSI to mint Icosa via the HSI buyback route. And when you do that, you do give up your HSI and you actually trade it for Icosa and this HSI then ends up over here. That's a whole nother video though, and we're not going to get into that today. We're just going to keep it strictly with HEDRON. So before we end this video, as a final note, just stop, think about this real quick, put a reminder down somewhere. Always be sure to mint your tokens before you end a hex stake. Once you've ended a stake without minting your HEDRON, you will lose those tokens forever. You can never get them back. So create a minder if need be so that this never happens. You could even name your MetaMask wallet Mint HEDRON or something along those lines. You can put a sticky note somewhere. You can set a Google reminder, calendar, anything. Just make sure you have some way of reminding yourself that you are going to end your stake or mint your HEDRON before you end your stake. So that's everything I had for you guys today. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you finally understand HEDRON. There's also going to be a written version on the website, so that way if you want to refer back to it, you can go ahead and read as well. If you'd like to support the channel, you can go ahead and join the YouTube memberships. You can donate in the link below. You can buy some merch at cryptographics.com. You can also go to cryptographics.com and book a one-on-one call with me if you want to learn from me directly for Hex, HEDRON, ICOSA, any of the ecosystem tokens, if you so choose. Also, guys, there's scammers in the comments, but YouTube just updated their platform, so that way now I have a handle. So you should be able to see me loud and clear if you're asking me questions. But if you want to ask me questions directly, go to cryptographics.com and send in a form so that way you can ask your questions directly to me. You can just bypass YouTube and all the scammy bots, ask a question to me directly, and I'll answer it for you as soon as I can. So I hope you have a great day, and I'll see you guys very soon in the next one for ICOSA. Peace.